Welcome to the Biz To Biz Podcast, your number one source for all business news.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to B2B Vault. Today, we're having a Street Smarts edition sponsored by the Green Sheet. So I am the author of the Street Smarts column, which appears in the Green Sheet online. And I write a column that comes out every 2 weeks. And after I do write my stories, I reach out into the agent ISO community and I find somebody that wants to come on and discuss what I wrote about, because to show everybody how relevant the topics are that I am writing about in the Green Sheet. And I've known about the Green Sheet since 2000, because one day the guy who was the former owner of JR's POS Depot, Riyadh, handed me 2 copies of the Green Sheet and he said, "You seem pretty smart. You probably can figure out how to start one of these companies." And that's exactly what I did. And I've been involved with, on the Green Sheet and the forums, which is kind of floated over to Facebook, and I'm on their advisory board. And now I've been writing the Street Smarts column for the last year. So today our guest is Stephen Morris. He's the managing partner of the Gatlick Group. And where are you located, Stephen?
I'm in Lexington, South Carolina. Originally from New York City, but I got married, and so that's how I ended up here. But I've been here for the last 13 years.
And how long are you in the business?
Since 1996. June of this year will be 28 years that I've been doing this.
Wow, you're doing it longer than me. So I started in 98. And and then, I started my company in 2001, and the podcast is almost 3 years old, and we've recorded over 300 episodes.
That's awesome, man. I'm so honored to know you. I met you at one of the payment conferences, and
SCAA.
You're probably in New Orleans. That was our first time meeting. I thought we met at the one before that.
We might have met.
Well, we talked more in depth in New Orleans, because that's when me, you, and Derek Hess were talking. And man, I got to give you your props, man. You are probably one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to payments. I can't say that about too many people, but you are a student of this game, and that was what was really intriguing for me to know you as a person. So I'm glad to call you not just a business colleague and a fellow peer, but you're a good friend and you know this business.
I appreciate that.
You got it, man. You can give me $50 after this radio interview. No, but in all seriousness, Alan, you're a great guy.
No, I try to, this is my way of giving back to the business that's given to me. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that there's a lot of information out there that's good, and a lot of information that everybody has their own opinion about what's right and what's wrong. But let's discuss something funny. Neither of us today are wearing a tie. Okay.
No, we're not.
Now, when I first started in the business and I didn't know anything, I would literally button-down shirt, long sleeve, and a tie. I didn't wear a jacket, but I did wear a tie. Okay. And I thought, because when I first went out to call on people, I would say that between 80 and 90% of clients told me that they were with their bank.
Correct. And we had to look like the bankers.
Needed to look the part.
Yeah.
The banker part. Now let's move 20 plus years into the future, right? There's less people doing the door-to-door sales thing, right? People still do it, but I believe that you should be wearing a polo with a logo on it.
Right.
And and the other thing I think is that, and you can tell me whether you agree or not. I know every agreement out there says, "Oh, you're supposed to represent our company," right? But I think agents need to think outside of the box, and I have another article coming out that just hit the Green Sheet yesterday about marketing. And one of the things I think agents should think about is how they can market themselves. So have your own website, make your own company, call yourself a consultant, a technology consultant. And try, when you go to people, you say, "Well, I work with different companies," because people ask me, "Well, what do you do?" And I explain to them, I go, "Listen, we have, technology. We want to get you the best technology for your business. But kind of the problem is, the business has kind of changed. Whereas everybody
Yes.
used to have a credit card machine sitting on their counter. Now
Right.
more and more people have a point of sale system, right?
Correct.
We have to become technology guys and women,
And
people to
exactly.
be politically be correct and not like upset anybody. No, and
Well,
I mean, listen, when I first started, there weren't very many women in the business. Now there's a lot.
oh yeah, and they do
There's
very
quite a
well.
few.
They do
Uh,
very well.
yeah.
The funny thing is, I remember when I first started, there were not a lot of African Americans in
No,
payments.
not at all.
I remember my mom. She looked at me when I first started. She's like, "What kind of job do you have?" she's like, you're begging people to sell a hypercon. What's a Nurit 2085? Like she really wanted me to quit being in merchant services because she thought I was wasting my time. She couldn't reference how it worked. And for years, I mean, you can even ask the average layperson on the street today. If you ask them, you say, well, how do you think a business gets their processing? How do you think they get that terminal? 95% of America will say they get it from the bank. And so a lot
Yeah,
of
they'll
people
tell
don't
you
know
the
about this
bank.
ISO world.
Yeah, they'll say the bank, Stripe, Square,
But this is
PayPal.
but this is before Stripe and PayPal. Like Stripe and
Right.
PayPal and Square, they're technically kind of still new. They're less than 10 years old. A little bit like I think Square is probably the oldest, 15 years old.
Yeah,
But I'm
Square
talking about
started with their little tiny
with the
dongle,
little
remember?
white reader. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm talking back from the 90s and the 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knew how processing worked. And the only reason that we know of Square and PayPal today is because of SEO. That's it.
Yeah.
So we're at a place right now where payments, it's not going away. We pay for more stuff with our smartphone now than ever before.
Oh, yeah,
And
for sure.
so it's only going to get to the point where this generation, and I say this generation of 20 and 30-year-olds, I call them the Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle generation. When they're in their 30s and 40s, everything will be contactless and technology based. How fast can I get paid? And how can I incorporate your merchant services into my software or into my platform that's going to make my business run better? So you're right. The ISO world, it's an interesting world. It's more diverse now than it has ever been in times past. But I think that that's a good thing. Now, the problem I'm having is people jumping into the industry and not becoming students of this platform because it's a very attractive industry. Elliot Foreman from Bonita Payments in New Orleans, he said something to me that I'll never forget. He says, wherever there's a lot of money to be made, there's a lot of corruption. And
That's
and that
true.
is such a true statement.
I mean,
And
we've
so you get
seen,
a yeah,
yeah, but
and I
we've
think the
seen
reason
people jump into the business. Like when the mortgage crisis happened,
oh yeah,
tons of mortgage brokers jumped into this business. Realtors jumped into this business.
yes,
A
yes,
lot of bad actors jumped into the business. We have, look at how many merchant cash advance companies are all being investigated in the last year
correct,
or so, and
correct.
people going to jail, because there's a lot of money to be made in merchant cash advance.
Correct.
But the
And we're
other
one of
thing
the
that,
few industries that's not regulated. And so anybody can jump in without a license, without anything, and they just go out there and they kind of make it up as they go. And I think that hurts us. So for guys like us that are the veterans, we have to make sure that we protect the integrity of our industry because it's a changing industry right now where we got to monitor those who try to disdain our credibility and disdain our profession.
and one of the things that, a couple of the things that are going on that really like upset me in the industry is one is I don't mind having referral partners like
Mm-hmm.
business consultants, CPAs, website development companies, software
Mm-hmm.
vendors, people who do other types of consulting, build out funnels and they need someone to help them get merchant accounts for their clients.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's all these companies popping up and all that are basically paying merchants to process.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think
that's
that's really I think it's real, it's making our business look really sleazy. I was talking to a business owner and he's like, oh, well, this guy told me he's going to give me back, 20% of 20%. So I'm like, listen, you're not getting back 20% of what he's trying to explain to me. Like, oh, I do 30 grand a month. I'm paying 3.5% on cash discount. And the guy's going to give me 20% of that. I go, no, there's money to people don't understand like
Interchange.
interchange,
Yeah.
transaction fees, bin fees, card, card
They
brand
have the
fees.
account on file fee. Like
Right.
they don't get that.
No,
But
but I'm
this
saying
is
like you have all these fees, right? And I told somebody I had a business own, back in the day, like I used to have business owners when I first started selling, and they're like, "Oh, explain credit card processing," and I would draw them a picture. Here's your machine, here's the processor, here's the bank, and
mhm.
here's your bank, and this is how it all interacts.
You
And
confuse
but
them.
no, they would be like happy because they didn't understand how it worked. Today,
Right.
like they know, oh, the money goes from the machine, I get it in my bank account.
Hmm.
But the problem is, you get these merchants and they're like, they want to get paid for their, my dog has a lot to say about it. Doesn't like it. Yeah, you have merchants and they're like, yeah, this guy's telling me he's gonna pay me for on my merchant account. There's even companies out there, and that's their whole business plan is just paying merchants. And I think it's a
I think
really
that sucks. I think that's like going to buy a car and the dealership is going to pay for your gas for the life of as long as you own that car. It's just a bad business model. I Your merchant is not going to give you a commission every time you shop there or send
well,
somebody. They're not going to
they're
give
not
you a
giving me
break.
a discount on the steak.
Right. They're not going to do that. So why would you create that model? And that just leads me to believe that, our industry is very competitive, that these other companies have to build a model on gimmicks. Now, the sad part is that's not going to last, because if you're doing it, then some other idiot is going to do the same thing and they're just going to pay your guy more. And then there's that disloyalty amongst the merchants. I truly believe that organic growth built on rapport and credibility is the way you survive.
Rocky,
That's
stop it. So
what kind of dog you got?
he's a Jack Russell mixed with a pointer.
Oh yeah, he's gonna keep barking. He's gonna
He'll
keep
stop.
barking.
Someone's either at the door or doing something. But
Got it.
the
But yeah,
but
it's
the
based
thing
on
is
credibility, man. We got to go back to the days where we shake hands and we talk belly to belly with these merchants and they trust us, because that's what is going away from our industry. Henceforth, that's why people coming in with all these gimmicks. And gimmicks don't stick long. That's just me.
well, it kind of makes us look cheap and sleazy, you
Well, we've
know?
been looking cheap and sleazy for a long time.
Well, no, it's always something like, oh, free
Yeah.
machines that really aren't free and free
Yeah.
POS that's really
Leases
not
for 20
free.
years. Is we here's the thing. Like I said, in an industry that is known for having a lot of manipulation, you got to be that person that does things the right way. Because I truly believe that if you do things the right way, you're going to get the right results. When you try to skip and jump hurdles and try to do all these things uh to get down the road faster, 9 times out of 10, you set yourself back. And if you do stuff that is sleazy, it's going to come back to bite you in the behind or at the end of the day.
Well,
So all
there
these
are
companies
law.
that we know about that, I'm not going to say names because I don't want to besmirch anyone's character, but all these companies that we know about that are no longer around or
Oh,
practice
yeah.
all these manipulative things, eventually they go to the wayside. The cream rises to the top.
No, the thing is that, when you have all this stuff going on, it just makes like the merchant starts to lose trust, and then they
Mm-hmm.
just go to Stripe, Square, and PayPal, and we basically like besmirch ourselves. So we're doing things that basically chasing the customers that we could be getting away from us.
Mm-hmm.
You
But
know,
they have their problems too. I mean, Square and Stripe, they have their problems. I
oh
mean, if
yeah,
you
but
go
I'm just
look
saying like
online and
the
you
people
know
look
you
at them and say, well, they're more transparent than we are. And we
nah,
try
they're
to
not. I don't think they're more transparent. I just think they capitalize on the people who have kind of left a stain on this industry. I mean, think about it. When you're dealing with people and you're trusting your rep to do their job, you're trusting the ISO that they signed you up with to do their job, and then that doesn't happen, then you just like, you know what, this is easier. Let me just go this route. But I mean, let's be real. We're human beings and we deal with technology. Those are the two things that are going to mess up. But what makes you great as a salesperson, what makes you great as an ISO and as a company is when those problems arise, that you handle it head on. There's always going to be batch issues. There's always going to be issues with risk and somebody ran a transaction that was higher than it should have been run. That's always going to be the case. But how do you survive in the midst of your merchants having issues knowing that they can count on you? Square and Stripe are never going to be able to compare to us on that.
Yeah, they don't even have a phone number to call.
There you go. There you go. So
No,
so
so
we we
today
we
there was
win
a
in some scenarios.
today there was a discussion in one of the forums on Facebook. And they're talking about this agent was complaining, going, "Oh, this some rep was going into an account that was auto
Mhm.
repair and promising this like super low rate." Some other guy was commenting, "Oh yeah, you can get it down to like below 1%." I'm like laughing because I knew that I get agents all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'll bring you this auto repair, but can you code it to this SIC code?" And then I
Oh,
look
they
up the SIC code and it's gas station. I'm like, dude, it's not a gas station. And we
yeah.
had a merchant that came to us about 3 years ago, and they were doing about 400, 500 grand a month of auto repair.
Hmm.
And the reason that I got them is they had gone to a local attorney down here. They got a
Hmm.
letter from Visa, and the letter said whoever they were doing business with miscoded their business to the wrong SIC code.
Oh Lord, what
And
happened?
the bank the ISO who they were with got sold to another company. And then that company
Happens a lot.
during the sale, they got audited and they found this merchant, right? So they're telling
Hmm.
him like he owes all this interchange back, right? The
How
merchant
many
owes it.
years
Oh, for like a few
for the
years.
life of the account?
It was a huge, let's just put it this way. It was a pretty big number. It was over
Hmm.
$1 million. So,
Woo!
so of interchange owed. So um, the lawyer came to me, goes, "Well, what do you think about this, that, and the other thing?" And I said, "Well, does this guy have a copy of the contract with the
Hmm.
terms and conditions in it and all that?" So we found that the guy did have a copy of the contract. He didn't
Okay.
have the terms and conditions, but we didn't really care about that. And on the contract, it said auto repair. And then we got a copy of the guy's VAR sheet and
Hmm.
found out that they coded it to fuel station. And fuel station has caps. So they have
Correct.
caps. So either if you like they have caps on like gas. So let's say it's like 0.5%, like a half a percent, and then there's like a $50 cap or something on it.
Hmm.
So if you're
Hmm.
repairing cars and it's thousands of dollars, all of a sudden you're getting this $50 cap where the interchange should really be like 2%. You might have $100 worth of interchange.
Right. Right.
So and I don't know, I just tell people like, hey, we're not miscoding anybody. I talked to another merchant last week who was selling peptides online,
Oh
and
boy.
somebody created a front website for him, and he was doing $1 million a month, and now he's on the match list, and he has
Yeah.
other bigger problems because he has some three-letter agencies coming after him. And I was like, no, you're not going to recover that business. You can't. I have merchants come to me all the time. I'm like, I look up the ingredients of their Nutra product, and there's a ingredients in there that say requires a prescription.
Right.
Well, you got to have a prescription. We're not going to board you selling GLP-1 and tell the
Let me ask
bank
you a
like,
question, Alan. Why do you think that that's the case? Why do you think? Because we live in a get over mentality.
yeah,
Everybody's trying to get over. And the sad part is you might get over in the beginning, but eventually you're going to get caught, right? Let's
right,
just be honest. This is banking. Uh, people, I tell this to ISOs and agents all the time. At the end of the day, the reason why you said in the beginning you used to wear a tie and a shirt is because you wanted to look like the banker. Well, truth be told, agent on the street, you are in banking. You're on the
right.
acquiring side of it, and so you can manipulate the paperwork all you want and try to change the SIC code and not do the site surveys and all the things that are needed to make sure your merchants are boarded correctly. But it's going to come back and bite you in the behind because if you're doing it half-ass or if your customers are trying to get over by not being truthful in what they're selling in their product or service, it's going to come back to bite you. You might get away with it for a couple of months. You might get away with it for a year. But when it comes back, it's going to bite you in the behind, merchant. And guess what? You know who they're going to blame? They're going to blame the agent.
Yeah, and also, like I do, I was working with an ISO that was, I used to do a little consulting for them. So they would say, oh, we need to run some stuff past you. They would pay, an hourly rate for
Mm-hmm.
this information. And they went through an audit, and I was like, well, what happened? So they told me, they said, we got caught with all these people as gas station
Told you.
instead of auto repair. And Visa and the bank are fining us $2
Finding them.
million.
Come on.
So they
And
ended up
did they have it? Hopefully
they
they had
ended
it
up
to pay.
they ended up doing a partial portfolio sale
Yep, that's
of
it.
their own merchants, like that they had internally, and they sold off some merchants back. They actually sold them back to their bank,
Mm-hmm.
and to pay the $2 million, they actually just gave them the merchants,
Wow.
handed
Yeah,
over like a handed over like a bunch of merchants, and they go, there's your 2 million. That's going to give you your two
that
million
covers
dollars
that
back.
covers
That
your
covers our
nuts.
fine,
Yeah.
because and the
Wow.
bank had to pay. Somebody had to pay, because the card issuers are the ones who want their money.
Of
You
course.
know, the card issuers want, you
Mm-hmm.
stole from the card issuer.
That's right.
And
That's
a
that
lot of
interchange.
agents,
Card issuers to acquirers and back.
yeah, a lot of agents don't understand. Like, that's where the interchange is going. It's going, like,
Mhm.
when I see, but let's just talk more about this race to the bottom. I mean,
Sure.
by giving out like lower pricing and causing and doing all these different things, you're just creating less profit for yourself. You're
Correct. You
degrading
create
the
less value.
business. You're also, yeah, you're destroying value. You're not
Mm-hmm.
giving value to your customers. Listen, I was talking to a guy on one of the forums, and he's like, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, what happened? And he goes, oh, I had a guy with 2 restaurants, and I gave the guy 8 Clover systems for free. And the guy used them for 2 months and then told me
Switch to
Clover
somebody else.
stinks, and he wanted, and I had to fly out there and try to get it working the way the guy wanted it to work. Obviously, he's not a Clover expert, and his
Right.
ISO wasn't a lot of help in doing that. A month later, the guy unplugs it all and tells him to come pick it up.
Yep.
And
And that's
now,
because you didn't put a value on your here's the thing. I've learned over the course of time, anytime you give someone something for free, there's no value to it. There's no commitment to it. Like, you remember when you bought your first car? How much did you pay for your first car, Alan?
my first car, I think
Yeah,
I
your
paid
first car
500.
that you ever bought, not the one that was given to you. The first car
No,
that
no,
you
the
ever
first
bought.
car I ever bought, I paid $500.
Right, but you loved that car and you valued it. You probably had it to where the windshield wipers might be falling off and you put tape on it to keep that car staying alive. But the reason why you put so much love into that car is because you put money behind it.
Right.
What happens is when we get to a place where we're giving merchants 8 Clover systems, you basically gave this guy $8,500 worth of free equipment,
Well, it's more
right?
than that. One of those Clovers, they're close to like 2,000
They're like
bucks now.
2 grand. I'm being conservative because they might have been some minis, they might have been some Clover
No,
flexes,
they were
but you
full stations.
okay. So you gave this guy $14,000 worth of free equipment, and now what do you have to show for it? The reason why he didn't value the Clover system is because you went in there automatically with your drawers down. And you
Right.
know what he did? He took the petroleum jelly and he gave it to you. And so now you're out of this equipment, right? You can reprovision it for another customer, but now your time. See, here's the thing: you can always make more money. You can't buy back your time. So that whole sales process, guess what, brother? It was a waste. It was a
Yeah,
waste of time.
he
And now
ended
you
up
got to go
having a
back to the merchant. You got to go back to the merchant out of state and pick up that equipment. You've lost so much time and value. I bet you I put you this way, Alan. I bet you he'll never do that again.
No, he told me he ended up having to drive. He tried to, the guy wouldn't pack it up. He wouldn't even take it to the UPS store. So he ended up having to get in his car. It took him 2.5 days to drive over there. I don't know where he was driving from, but he
And he
told me
was
it's two
driving
days
halfway
in
across the country for 2 days.
2 days in the car, right? He goes, gets there. The guy doesn't show up on time. He gets there, the equipment's just all like thrown in a pile in the back of
Hmm.
the restaurant, not really, nicely,
Probably
right?
got grease on it, pizza sauce. Probably
Whatever, just all
didn't
beat
look
up.
nothing like how it looked when it got shipped.
Right. So then he had to like take it all and wipe it all down and then put it in his car and then go to the other restaurant, put it all in his car and then drive home with his tail between his legs. And I've heard
Hey,
lots of stories like that.
I'm glad that happened to that brother because I promise you or at least I hope that will never happen again. I just you got to sell value. You have to make it make financial sense.
And you also got to put these people like in a contract, right?
Yeah,
Oh, if
yeah.
I'm going to give you a free credit card terminal, like it says in our paperwork, oh, you're getting a terminal. People
Mhm.
ask me, oh, can I buy it? Yeah, we'll let you buy it. But if you want to just pay 39 a month, if it breaks, we'll replace it. But if you buy it and you drop it on the floor and the thing smashes, you got to buy a
You
new
own
one.
it. You got
So,
thank you. That's the thing about business is you have to set the expectations in negotiations, right?
and the other
If I'm gonna
thing
give
is,
you something, and I don't like using that word free. I think that word free is a horrible word. I'll always say pro bono or I'll say at my cost. Because when I say it's at my cost, that
right,
that that lets the merchant know that there is a cost associated with this. But
right,
you as an agent have to say, if I'm gonna front this, this is what I require. We placed a POS system in a liquor store,
right.
and it's a good liquor store. The client didn't want to do dual pricing, but he wanted the system for free. Well, what do you think I said? I told him, I said, if I'm placing this at my cost, you're gonna have to do dual pricing, at least until I make my money back. And we
Right.
put that in the paperwork, and he agreed to that. So it all boils down to the sales moxie and these ISOs have to realize you didn't get into business to give stuff away for free,
And the other
right?
thing that happens in our business, which is really crazy, is agents sign contracts. They don't read them. There could be
Ever.
a
They don't even
monthly
read their ISO
minimum.
agreement.
No, there could be a monthly minimum, like you got to send in 4 deals. And also, they don't read the section about like if you're taking these upfront bonuses and the
Clawbacks.
merchant
Yep.
leaves within the first year, you might have to give all or half you might have to give a
Most of the
percentage
time
of
it's
the money
all.
back.
Yeah, most of the time it's all. If they cancel, most ISO agreements will say if they cancel before 13 months that those clawbacks are due. There's a company in Michigan that is famous for that. They do a 14x true up and all this other stuff. But here's the thing: these guys fall for it because they need the money. They need the
Right.
money. And so this industry, it's not about the bonuses. Like bonuses, if your ISO gives it to you, God bless you. But notice you're on the hook for that if that merchant cancels. But this is a
Yes.
residual based business. So it's a slow migration and a consistent marathon that we
And the
have to
guys
run.
and the guys have it easier than when we started. We were out selling like 3 tier, then we were selling
Oh,
cost
yeah,
plus. And if you had an account doing 30, 40 grand and you cleared $50, you were like, oh,
you were good.
I'm
That's
50,
it.
I'm making $50. It's awesome. Today, you get a 25, 30 grand merchant and they're doing dual pricing or surcharge,
You're
you're
making
clearing out like a
$800.
grand.
Right. Exactly. It's
So,
it's it's so funny how the industry has changed, and I'm learning a lot. Even as I've been doing this for a long time, I'm still learning about ways to be a better business person, and that's why I think mentorship in merchant services is needed. I get it. Everybody wants their ISO to be the greatest. Oh, I write for this guy, and we're the best, and you're my competitor. But honestly, you're not going to make it anywhere in life without mentorship. If you look at the greatest quarterback, we got the Eagles playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Patrick
right.
Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks of our time right now. You
Yes,
don't
for
think he
sure.
has a you don't think he has a coach that's like, hey Patrick, you could have threw that ball a little bit better, or he has a conditioning coach, he has a trainer. Top of his game in the NFL, multiple wins as a Super Bowl champion, MVP, right? But he
Right.
still is being mentored at the highest level. So, what makes you think you're going to come into merchant services and try to figure it out on your own? You have to be mentored to be better for
Well, a
greatness.
lot of the reps,
Otherwise,
but a
yeah,
lot
the
of
reps,
reps, no, they want 80, 90%, right? But they don't want to do all the
they do
work.
one deal a year,
No, no, they don't want to do all the work, right? They don't want
right?
to do the work. that's needed to like maintain that merchant, to have the relationship with the
Yes.
company that has the technology that the merchant needs, you know, and things like that. And I remember when I first started in this business, it was a 50-50 split, right? And then we got to a
Right.
point where, okay, hey, we brought in like 2 million in processing. What are you
But
guys
see,
going to
you
do
got the
for
guys
us?
now that have 2,000 in volume and they want an 80% split.
Right. No, and I'm
That that
like, yeah, it's crazy. No, but I say
that's
to
where
them,
I teach.
we went back to our ISO, we renegotiated our contract. So
Right. And you can
they
do
said,
that
oh,
because you have leverage. See,
right,
that's that leverage piece. If I got 2 million in revenue coming in every month, I can go back to the ISO and say, hey, I think I kind of got this. I want a little bit more of the lion's share. And then that's where it goes to the negotiation. But you got, and here's the funny part, Alan, you got people that'll say, well, I get an 80% split with such and such company, and you offer me a 50. Most of the time, they don't even know what their cost is. So
right,
if you're getting an 80% split of a higher padded Schedule A, you're actually getting a 50% split.
right,
So if I gave you the option and I said, hey, Alan, would you rather have 50, would you rather have 90% of $1 million or 50% of 3 million?
right,
The 50% of the 3 million is better because
right,
even though the split is less, the profitability is more. And the problem is most of these agents don't read their isogram. I had a girl the other day reach out to me. She sent me the Schedule A of a local competitor, well, not a local competitor, but a competitor out of Texas. And her Schedule A automatically said it, interchange plus 5 basis points and 7 cents. That's her cost.
right.
So most, like I said, the race to the bottom, it's a sucky race, but I just refuse to participate in it. At the end of the day, I have to make money as a person, as a agent. I understand my processor has to make money,
Right.
and I got to bring value to the merchant. If I could do those three things, I'm good. But the problem
Yeah, we
is
have to be in the value chain, right? The
mhm,
agent, the ISO, the bank, or however that's set up. You have to be a good partner to your partners,
that's
right?
right.
Be a good partner so they treat you fair. Like I brought in like a high risk deal, right?
Hmm.
To one of my partners, and we get a big split there. And I said, listen, I
Okay.
know you're not giving me my usual split on this deal, right? This is a higher risk deal. It's a ton of volume. Okay, but I know you guys can do this deal, right?
Right.
I'm talking about it's multi-millions, all non-card present. And
Ooh,
they
nice.
and they said to me, okay, we'll give you 70%. I'm like, okay. And
And the funny thing is, you have that negotiating power because they know what you're bringing to the. Like your ISO's not stupid. They know who their top reps are. They know who signs good deals. They know the margin that these guys sign deals at. But if you're a guy that does one deal a year and your average merchant is doing 3,000 a month, you're not going to have that leverage to be able to negotiate on certain accounts. And that's the thing that it can only be taught by us, the veterans, to these new guys. Because here's the thing, Alan, another 20 years from now, you and I are not going to be actively cold calling. We are not.
no,
So
I'm
so
not
we're
even actively cold calling now.
right. But
I'm
my thing is
electronically
the
cold
we
calling.
we when we pass the baton to this next generation of payment professionals, they're going to be trained to just race to the bottom and do these scumbag type of negotiations. They got to learn value somewhere because if not, it's going to be a very
And
very
I think
sad day in payments.
one of the other problems that I have in the business, and this is like an ongoing thing. So like you're going to laugh at this, but I have one portfolio that I started in 2001. I'm going to tell you the journey it's been on. It went from
Okay,
Imperial Bank to Comerica Bank to Global Payments. They told us
Global takes
to
everybody. They live up to their
they
name.
told us we had to leave because we had so many Narit 2085s and they couldn't figure out how to deal with them on the back end. And they were
Okay,
like, no, no, no. Because we had one client that had 100 plus stores. And they were like, no, you got to leave. We can't have this because we only programmed about 10 stores on them. They're like, no, no, we don't want that merchant. Take all your merchants and leave. We ended up going to Com Data We were on their Comdata for several years. They sold to PAI. We were there for probably like 8, 9 years. They sold
Wow.
to Clearant. That was the worst. I don't want to badmouth whatever. Clearant. My
Yeah,
friend John
we
Shipley
supposed
works there.
we supposed to be nice.
But whatever they, their attitude was it's not PAI anymore. Now it's Clearant. And this happens a lot during sales where all of a sudden the buyer has buyer's remorse and all of a
Right.
sudden they start raising the rates on the merchants. And then as the rep, you're still getting paid residual, right? Because your residual just gets switched from company A to B to C to D to E,
Right,
F,
right.
G, right? So now, and then you got to go back to your merchants calling you, hey, I just got raised 20 basis points, or I
Hmm.
just got hit with some $300 fee. And that's just another really bad part of our business where the ISOs do damage to the agent's reputation, as far as that goes. And
But do you
not,
think they care about that?
no, they don't. They just care about,
Because
especially when the private equity money is there. They're going
that's
for
it.
the private equity people are the ones running the show. And
What
it's
what
the
I've
same,
learned what I've
huh?
learned over the course of time is that when a company sells to another company, be prepared for rate increases because they don't look at it as, hey, Mr. Merchant, the pizzeria, or Mrs. Merchant, the retail location. To them, it's just one collective book. And if we raise the rates of every merchant on that book, if we lose a couple, it's going to happen. Attrition is going to happen regardless.
Right.
But for them, it's how much money can I make on this book that is recently purchased? Now, will they still pay the agent? Of course they will. They got an obligation to pay those guys, and sometimes they'll offer you a buyout if they feel that your residual portfolio is very low. But overall, um, whenever companies buy other companies, and it's gonna happen. That's why agents need to have an exit plan because you have to be strategic in your career from the sales side to the management side to running a small retail ISO. You have to be able to know your strategic career moves 5, 10 years in advance because I don't care who anybody is. Oh, we're never going to sell. Those are the ones that usually sell. We're not going to sell anytime soon. Next thing you know, oh, we're selling. We got $33 million on it. It happens all day, every day. So unless you control the bin and you're the main ISO, you're subject to somebody saying, "Hey, I want to buy your portfolio."
Oh yeah, I get that. So what? So I mean, I don't know what the I don't know what the solutions are for the race to the bottom, other than like the sales reps need to take a little bit more pride in what they're doing, and a lot of times they don't even understand. Like we have like I have a couple of accounts where they're on a very low cash discount
Mm-hmm.
rate.
When you say very
Okay,
low, what do you mean?
like 2.89%.
Oh yeah.
Right. So really low because and they're due big numbers, like over 500,000 a month. But
Okay.
I have to sit down with the rep all the time because I'm like, okay, yeah, man, I understand. Like they did this much money, but we're in this economy right now where, you know, credit cards are being used more than debit cards.
Correct.
Right. And so when there's more credit card and less debit card, your margin of, your profit margin is going to go down
Slimmer.
because
Right.
your
Correct.
expenses go up.
Are going
And
up.
I've
We were
talked to
just
other
talking about that in
agents.
my office today about expenses going up because more and more people are using credit cards. We were just talking about that.
Yeah. So, and I can look into my different portfolios that I have, and I can
Hmm.
see like, okay, well, if you're on a cost, if you have all these merchants on cost plus, your kind of margin is built in there, and your
Hmm.
margin's going to be the same. But if you're doing flat rate processing, right, a
Right.
total flat rate, and I have some large companies on flat rate, and
Okay.
then you can go into the data and we can look, oh, what's the percentage of credit and what's the percentage of debit? And it doesn't matter what
Right.
kind of credit it is, whether it's consumer credit, these are all like consumer, or it's rewards cards, right? Versus is it debit, at 0.05. But we've also, and I try to explain this to agents too, is that debit's kind of changed over the last few years because we have all these neobanks now, like
Right.
Chime and PayPal and all these companies. They're not in that point zero five. The only point zero five banks are your humongous banks like US Bank, Chase,
TD
Citibank,
and
Bank of
Bank of America.
America,
Hmm.
right? All the big, national banks, right? Everybody else is on regular debit interchange, and your younger consumers, right? They go away. They're going to the credit unions.
Right.
They're
They're
going
going
to
to
the
yep.
community bank. They're going away from corporate banks, right? And then they're also using all these apps, like they're getting their payroll on Chime and,
Hmm.
you know, they don't even have a
Rent
real bank
savings,
account.
right?
Huh?
They're getting it all on the banks that don't have a brick and mortar location. So you're
Right.
right.
They're getting it's on a card,
Hmm.
So they're on, they're on the, we're in this trajectory where all of a sudden you have this, I take my customer base and we did an analyzation and we say people 40 to 45 and above are on this side, 40 and 45 and below on this side. And
Hmm.
both of those groups have two completely different buying habits.
Right. That's true. We're the
And
last generation of check writers.
yeah, young people don't even know how to write a check. I'll talk to merchants and they'll be like, check? I don't have any checks.
That's
And
right.
I'm like,
They don't like I said, the average 30-year-old doesn't even know how to write a check, and the average 55-year-old person, they're the last generation of check writers. Like that's why Deluxe bought Elliott Management Group. Nobody's
right,
writing checks anymore. When we used to go to the bank, they would say, "Oh, you want the Garfield checks or the Scooby Doo checks?"
right.
Nowadays, they're like, "Here's your one direct deposit form. Give that to your HR department." So we're living in a world where like I said, the race to the bottom, unfortunately, it is a real thing. I hate it, but the only way it's going to change is when people take stock of who they are, their time, and their effort to being a really consummate
Yeah,
payment professionals and moving forward to realize my time is money. When you take that mindset, Warren Buffett says that all the time. When you take that mindset that every second, every minute counts as dollars being
right.
exchanged, you will really not waste time with situations like you said, the guy giving away 8 clovers. That would have never happened to me. That's
But
crazy.
also, I think a lot of this we have to look at and who's to blame, the acquiring banks and then the ISO who's sponsoring these ISOs below them, right? Because a lot of
Hmm.
people don't realize that. You can have like this big super ISO or someone who's a full service ISO, and then they
Right.
sponsor other ISOs underneath them. And I think
Hmm.
it starts at the top. I think that these companies that are at the top of our food chain, right?
Right.
That those companies, I think that they need to really look at how are these companies going to market, right? How are
Hmm.
their agents going to market? How are their agent offices going to market? How are
Right.
their ISOs going to market, sub ISOs, and go, you got to show us what you're doing. I'll
Right.
give you another example. I had a friend of mine and he calls me up. He's like, "Oh, I have this guy needs a new home." So I talk to the guy on the phone. The guy starts telling me how he's leasing $99 a month for 48 months Clover Flexes or a Clover station to every merchant, whether they're card present, non-card present. They don't even need a machine. They got to get a lease. And
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
"No, I'm not doing business with you." Blah blah blah. He went to another guy that I know, and that guy called me on the phone. I said, "There's no way I'm getting involved with this guy," and he wanted to send me some of the guy's deals, and I was like, "No, I talked to that guy. I can't do it." And now
Hmm.
my friend who took some of the deals from the guy has his whole BBB blown up because of people complaining about these $99 leases on a
Leases.
Clover Flex that costs 500 or 600 bucks.
Well, they do that. And whenever I see a heavy lease shop, that means you're not making residuals. That's
So I
that's
try to,
I've never seen a situation where a rep is out there and they're forced to lease $99 or they just forced to lease, period. I've never seen them earn the lion's share or at least the regular 50 rep share of the residuals. 9 times out of 10, they're leasing those systems for $99 a month. The ISO's making thousands of dollars every lease.
yeah, but
And they
most of
make it and they make it
this,
20%.
this guy had his own leasing company. He wasn't doing it through the ISO's leasing company. The ISO wasn't even getting any money from it.
So he's basically scamming the people. Wow.
He was spending a ton
In-house
of money
leasing.
on
Wow.
He was spending a ton of money on advertising, and he said he needed that $99 lease to keep the advertising going. And I
That's
was
sad,
like,
man.
this
That's so
is kind of
sad.
stuff, can destroy your business because, and I think from the top down that these companies that are on the top, right? Because
Mhm.
ultimately they're the one. I think that they need to take some responsibility and put a stop to this. And I remember my very first contract with Imperial Bank, they told us
Mhm.
you cannot sell for less than this. We couldn't
Right.
sell for less than a certain price. That was
Right.
it.
Because
That
they're
was our
not trying to
bottom
lose money.
line. Huh?
They're not trying to lose money. They're not trying to
Yeah.
lose money, and that makes sense.
Yeah. And if we had to get something for special pricing, we had to send it to them and get it approved.
I wish we need to go back to those days.
Yeah. And I think more people need to put their foot down and kind of stop doing all these shenanigans because it kind of stopped for a while,
Hmm.
and then with cash discount, everybody was doing like really well. And then it started again when everybody started to lower the fees, pay the merchants under the table. And also,
That part blows my mind. I will never, and mark my words, I will never pay a merchant for processing. That you're just not my customer. Because like I said, if I'm gonna pay you, the next guy's gonna come in and offer to pay you more, and then it
exactly,
just
that's what
it's
it
not
is.
worth it. It's
It's
not
this
worth
race.
it.
That's why my article, steer clear of the race to sub-zero.
Yeah.
So that's the story for today. Check it out in the green sheet, greensheet.com, Street Smarts column. My name's Alan Kopelman, B2B Vault. Welcome. Thank you for Stephen for joining us today. Any last words, Stephen?
I just don't participate in the race to the bottom. Value who you are as a sales professional. When you look at attorneys and doctors, like I said, they make a certain amount per patient or per hour. You got to put a value on your time and really say, hey, I'm not in this business to work for free. And I'm not in this business to give everything away. Learn how to negotiate, learn how to make sure that it makes sense to you, and learn. And here's a challenge: if the deal doesn't make sense, are you man enough or are you woman enough to walk away and say, you're not my type of merchant? That's when you know that you've matured in the payment space, when you can say, hey, you know what? You're not my customer, and be confident enough to walk away because you would have lost money on the deal. So that's my last final words. Thanks so much for having me, Alan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen, very much. And everybody, if you enjoyed the podcast, like, follow, subscribe. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and we're on all the social medias. Follow B2B Vault and watch out for more episodes of Street Smarts if you're in the payments industry. Peace out and carpe diem.